That's a bit British, but close enough.
Damn
We
it.
are
Okay.
we are migrants from there, so
Oh, but no. That's not what I want. What about your, like, how would you say it?
fucking on the lime stream, mate.
There you go. I love it. And that's why, Beck Milonis, you are here. You dear, you absolute dear. You are just such a blessing and a treasure to this place. And I cannot wait to share you with this audience over here on the Conscious Awakening Network. And thank you all so much for hanging out with us this evening. This is, of course, going to be rebroadcast in all the places, but you can find Beck Milonis at her website. She has an amazing vibe, a goddess energy. She is a priestess, psychic channel, and activator. I actually went through your super activator that you sent me.
Oh,
Holy shit. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's
I
cool
have it
though.
in my drive now. I'm at my Google Drive so that on a drive I can listen to it. 15 and a half minutes long. I sat there and was just like, yes. I mean, it's so great. And what you do for people is just absolutely beautiful. So, before we get launching too far in here, because you know that I'll do this and you and I can just do this, please just let my audience know just a little bit more about yourself that I didn't cover here.
Amazing. The only really thing that, I mean, they're all just words anyway, is that I want to say that whenever I do any sort of transmission like this, there's always frequency behind it. So I'm an activator, as Brandon said, I'm a channeler. And if you open your heart, I can already feel some of the themes that might be coming through, but spirit speaks through me. And it's an energetic activation, really, is what it is. So that is my gift, being able to relay frequency and activate people through my Shakti, through my energy. So there is definitely that is a potential. You might have the potential to activate some stuff, clear some stuff, have some downloads around some things. So just be open. And it's always perfect. The right messages will come for whoever needs to hear this. So yeah.
Beautiful. Are you feeling anything ahead of this evening? I'm just intuitively called to see if you're
Yeah.
intuitively called to.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. Before we dropped in, I was just had a moment meditating, and I was like, right, spirit, where do we want to start this? What needs to be said? And the word expectation and outcome and attachment to outcome was coming through, and trust. So I think it's a good place to start.
Absolutely.
Because as humans, we have so much attachment to the external and what the external is doing. And for myself, I've been going through a very big process of trusting my internal more than anything that is going on externally. And through all sorts of situations and configurations and circumstances in my life, you might notice I'm trying to speak slower these days. Every time we talk, I feel like I'm like, but I'm actually just feeling into, I can say this with fewer words. So personally, I've been going through a big recognition of we only want the external stuff to give us an internal feeling. And this projection that we see outside of ourselves of this reality it's a projection. And so if we can access that internal state and hold that internal state, it doesn't matter what's happening outside of us. We don't need money to feel secure. We don't need a partner to feel loved. We don't need people buying our shit for us to feel successful. Like, these are all things that come once we have embodied the frequency that we are trying to embody. And our soul only gives us a desire because it's an authentic part of our soul codex to experience. And so a soul codex, to me, to explain that language, because someone might be like, what the fuck is a soul codex? It's a framework or a set of codes, and codes to me is information, or it's a way of being. It's a framework that we're here to experience, and we've chosen to experience, or certain traits that we're here to embody. So for instance, for someone like you, it would be connection. I feel like that's a really big part of your soul codex, bringing people together. It's freedom, it's expansion, it's creativity. For me, it's love. I mean, for you, it's love as well, but I think for everyone it's love. But for me, it's really to embody and express and be and experience love. It's freedom, it's channeling, it's the galactic stuff, it's the medicine woman stuff. It's all these different things that I'm here to experience and be and bring through my life to impact others, to bring up those soul codes in them. So if we have a desire for something, for instance, an example would be, we have a desire to reach more people with our art, with our work, with our healing, with whatever it is. It's because that desire, whether or not it's manifest in the way that we think it is, there's something in that desire which is guiding us towards a part of our soul codex which wants to be expressed. So for me, that desire would be the ability to impact people on a really profound level through my words, through the channeling that comes through me. And I only have that desire to access that part of my soul codex, which is already there. And so if I can tap into that part of my soul codex without fixating on how is that going to be manifest, the ways in which it manifests is wild. And we need to stop trying to control the external. Like we are looking to the external and trying to control it from outside of ourselves, rather than realizing that the external is only ever going to reflect the internal. And sometimes it's a process of, we really need to hold on to that internal frequency and hold on to it and hold on to it. And even if it seems nothing is budging in the external, it's trusting that that frequency is more real than what we're seeing. And so recently for me, I felt this massive up leveling of my energy, and it's just so much love pouring through me and so much like joy and, oh my God, life gets to be amazing, like magic. And the 3D hasn't quite caught up yet. Like little things are dropping in, but I feel this massive up leveling I'm going through. And it's the moments where we would contract, like we get a bill and suddenly we're like, oh my God, I'm going to go back to that previous level of freaking out around my money situation. Or we get a text from someone we're seeing and it's not the text we'd hoped for, or whatever it is. Can you hold that internal state no matter what is showing up, trusting that that frequency within you is going to draw that to you? So that was the first kind of theme that was coming through, because I think when we give our power away to the external, then we're constantly replaying those old pathways. We're replaying those old patterns and behaviors, because the external is only showing us a past reality, a past creation, a past identity, something from our past. And when we can see that stuff reacting, see that stuff showing up and not react to it in the same way that we used to, and be like, isn't that interesting that I have this massive bill and I don't have the money to pay for it? Isn't that interesting that that's showing up for me right now? Okay. A former version of me in this moment would freak the fuck out. I would panic. I would be like, I'm so broke. This always happens to me. It's not fair. My money reality sucks. This version of me, who's really anchored in that trust, is like, I know I'm a powerful creator. I know I'm always supported. I know that the frequency I feel within me of abundance is inevitably going to call in whatever needs to happen for that to shift. And I release the control of how that will happen. Yeah, it's in my personal relationships too. That theme has been playing out of like, I know what my heart's desire is, and I know that that is going to be manifest in some way, and not attaching to one set of circumstances, one person, one relationship, one configuration for that to be made manifest, and understanding whatever is showing up in that moment is perfection, because it might be the expander that you need to get you to that next level, or it might be the thing and it just needs to develop to get there, right? But it's showing up in that presence of it's always perfect.
The other side of that is a beautiful place. This other side of expectation, attachment, this external existence, and it comes in such an empowering form, and it's such a sledgehammer mode. It feels like a wrecking ball that comes into your life. So invite us into the next phase that we can look forward to after the expectation and attraction. Once you're really able to remove things from pedestals and let yourself know that they never needed to be there in the first place, and that you yourself put them there. What's on the other side of that?
It's the freedom of knowing that that internal experience is always available to you, and you don't need the external to give that to you, which really, that is freedom from suffering, because that can never get taken away from you. That state of fulfillment can never get taken away from you. That state of love can never get taken away from you. So for me, I've seen, for instance, calling in a partner or whatever, the state of love that I was able to reach within myself, of feeling that wholeness, feeling that internal lover. Like I really anchored in my internal lover before I could see anything showing up in my reality. And it was like, oh my God, this is my own energy. This is my own state of being. I literally don't need something outside of me to give me this experience. And so it's freedom, because so long as we are giving that person, that situation, that job, that the following, whatever it is, the power to make us feel a certain way, then there's always the opportunity that person will leave and will be heartbroken. That love will get taken away. The money will go, whatever it is. But if it's coming from within and it's self-sourced first, you understand that nothing can take that away, because it's an internal experience. And so for me, it's being able to be present in what's showing up and see life as a gift, and to be able to not try and, there's this like tendency to want to control, right? Which I really had with anxiety and whatever it is. I need to know what the outcome's going to be. I need to know where this is going. I need to be certain before I put my heart into something or dive all in. Because what if it fails? What if that person leaves? What if I meet the love of my life and he breaks up with me, and then it's devastating? Right. So it's interesting because I've actually been spending time with a friend through the week who is going through a breakup, and she's in complete grief. And it's like all my worst fears being in my face. And I'm having to sit with that grief and being like, oh, this is the worst case scenario. And could I live through this? I probably could. Right. So it's like when we can let go of that fear of the worst case scenario of it doesn't work out, or, we have it and it gets taken away, and understanding that that experience doesn't evade us, because it's either going to be, the next thing is going to be closer, or like it's only going to get better, right? Is how it is. So we don't attach to the external anymore, because we're like, right now in the present, this is perfect exactly as it is, and it's a gift exactly as it is, and it has everything within it exactly as it is, exactly as it's showing up, even if it's shitty 1111 as I looked up. But we don't need to try and impose our will onto it. It's being more free and detached. It's neutrality, it's detachment. It's like, no matter what happens to me, I know I'm good. Like, I know I'm supported. I know that it's only leading me up the stream to better times. It's like, we're not moving backwards, right? Because we can look at our life as in, I'm moving backwards. I failed. That opportunity's gone. That relationship's gone. I'm now, it's not fair, victimhood, all of that. Or we can look at our life like, it's only ever leading me closer to more amazing things. So there's two ways that you can look at the universe and life. Like, everything is working out for me, or nothing is working out for me. And I think that freedom from attachment is that everything is working out for me, no matter how it looks, because I can be fine. It's like that meme of that dog in the burning house. And he's like, this is fine. You can be that dog in the burning house.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that, by the way, because it encapsulates so much of this idea. And you know what it really is, and you nailed it with this, and it's the liberation of limitation. And so you're liberating yourself from the limiting ideas that you were attached to. And that's really what you see them as at a certain point. This is where surrender comes in. Like, surrender being redefined for me was in Dr. Joe Dispenza's book. Just finished it this year, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And it's wonderful. It's just so nice the way that he frames a few things in there, especially about present moment. I'm going to come back to that present moment for you and ask you about it. But this idea of that really the attachments were limitations themselves, in the sense that what I figured out about this, and you've also mentioned this as well, is that it's what I want or something better. That's sort of where I am with everything now. It's all right, cool. All this dope, amazing, the most crazy, amazing shit I can think of. And I'm not limiting in any way. I'm very imaginative and creative, right? And so it's that or better. Because maybe what I'm like, the craziest and most amazing thing I can come up with in my mind at this time of my awareness is shit compared to what I'm actually capable of if I just get out of the way and allow things. And so I've compared this idea, this indigenous idea. I've got a necklace over there from traveling through that part of the country years ago on tour, and it's a little medallion, and it's got a man inside of a maze below it. And so the idea is that you're the person in the maze, or you're the avatar, let's say, in the maze, and you're also, though, in conjunction and in complete alignment and tethered to via like some invisible walkie-talkie that's really low. It's on very low volume in your head, but it's there and it's always guiding you the right way. But it's just really, 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 really quiet. And so this person, this higher you, sees the you in the maze and knows all the best pathways. It knows the best ways to bring you to the shortest amount of to the best place in the least amount of resistance. All you've got to do is listen to it, follow the instructions. But some of us, and due to the nature of this environment, I feel on purpose, but I feel it's on purpose, is that it's very loud and distracting here. And so really tuning that out, and this is what meditation's all about. This is what walks in nature and just minor bits of isolation, like really get away from the energies of others for a little while and just be with you. And you'll really hear this intuitive guide that's telling you, hey, look, we're in this maze thing together. And like when you're having a shit time, I'm having a shit time. And instead of looking at me like I'm punishing you and then I'm screwing you over only when bad things happen, that's when you want to talk to me, right? Or when you need something from me and then you don't listen to what I tell you because you're not in full flow and surrender. It's because then you'll get like an intuition, And then some folks, and then you'll start to say, oh, well, that can't be the sign, or no, that's ridiculous, or why would that's way over here. Why would I go over here when I need to go over there? And it's like, dude, if you'd listen, the person in the maze knows you need to go that way. But if you go over here and talk to this person or take that side job for a little bit, it'll take you actually the shortest, best way around. And you'll see that it comes back, but better. And this is the part of, like I said, the surrender part of it that was framed in Dispenza's work. Because I had, a bit, not an issue. I didn't have a clear understanding about it to apply it well. And the way that I used to think about it is okay, well, I'm just giving up. Like, I'm just like, no, this is a problem for me to solve. Like, I have the ability, I have the intellect. But really, the intellect comes in knowing that you've got blind spots and that there are things that maybe you don't know the answers to everything. But your admission of that, and then your offering of it to your higher self in the top of the maze, it just can do this like that for you. That process is where I'm at now. And it feels unbelievable. Which brings me to the moment, this present moment idea and your power.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the present moment?
Totally. So there are a few things dropping in. My whole body's having a big, lots of energy moving through me as I'm feeling into what to say here. There are two levels from where we can create. We can create from the mind, which sees only limitation. It sees only our past programming. It sees only roadblocks. It sees only what could go wrong. It sees only what it's already known. And there's big energy coming through here. We can create through the heart, which is tapped into the infinite, all of everything. And so it's choosing from which place you are aligning your creations and allowing yourselves to be guided. If we're guided from the heart, then we're naturally tapped into the infinite consciousness, which knows all of the, so I see consciousness as, and in the quantum realm, there's like, it's infinite, right? There's infinite pathways, infinite multiple realities, configurations, timelines, moments, ways for you to get to your divine destiny, ways for you to have a certain experience, right? And our mind sees one path thinking, this is the path. This is the way that I need to go, because it's based on what has been. It's based on what hasn't worked out. It's based on what I believe to be true. The heart, on the other hand, can tap into this quantum network of all of these different timelines. And this is one of my skills, is being able to see every single fucking timeline and configuration and be like, that one, right?
Dr. Strange, yeah.
Right. And that's from practice. And that is also tapping into, some galactic technology, that sort of thing. But when we're tapped into this web, right, of the life, of everything, of the higher perspective, of the higher purpose for the greatest good of all, it's like through our heart, through our antenna, through our pineal gland, through our psychic connection to everything, we are guided towards the most easeful and magical path, right? So if you can go on the same path a different way, and you can have one path which is shitty and you have to fucking struggle and it takes 10 years and it's really hard, or you can follow the heart path, which is like, it sees, like, I'm trying to think of, like, so for instance, us meeting, right? That coming into alignment, the number of things that had to fall into place. Like, one of us could have made one little tiny decision and we're going to meet you in 10 years now. Sorry. I feel like we were always going to meet because we were like, we're not missing each other. Right.
And we have a great cute story too, that I'll note.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. But it's like, because we were both in full heart alignment of like, where bring me the people, bring me the things, like, what is it? How do I serve? It's just like, here it is. It just clicks. Because consciousness is tapped into the oversoul network. It's tapped into the infinite, all of it, all the potentials, all of the things. And it's constantly reconfiguring itself as to what is the most aligned now? What is the most aligned now? What is the most aligned now? Because something that was aligned 5 seconds ago when I was talking, it's like, but I said something, I moved my hand this way, and now consciousness has changed. And now the path, like a whole timeline is fucking collapsed.
Like,
and this is why,
on a huge level, it's like
totally
manifestation ADD. It's like, okay, we're bringing you this. It's like a way constantly you're changing your order. That every time that it's bringing it out from the kitchen, it's like, oh, yes, okay, got it. And then they just keep running back. That's why you don't get shit, because they're just in the middle of making things. You change your mind.
This is why I don't get attached to, I used to be a reading junkie. So I used to get readings all the fucking time, tell me my future, pulling the tarot cards, all this stuff. Now I do it, like I do the pick of cards on YouTube because I find them entertaining. And they're like, where's my energy at now, right?
Yeah.
But I used to get so attached to these readings, and they'd be like, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen within this time frame and this time frame. And even myself, I see future potential. So I would see a future potential and I'd be like, cool, that's going to happen. And then I'd get attached to that future potential. And what would happen is that person's no longer in alignment, or there's an easier route, or this has to happen first, or this configuration changed. And I would get so like fucking fucked up by it, because I would be like, but that was so sure. And like, what? And now I'm resisting the new path. But it's like, so we can't attach to one outcome or projection or timeline or one way it's going to happen. Because what if something has shifted now? A timeline has shifted. There's a faster, easier way. There's a nicer way, right? So that's why we have to be in the present moment, always tapped into the heart, because that heart is going to tell you this is what the alignment is now. There's so many times, like, so for instance, that activation you said that you received from me, that's a bundle I released recently. And I would love to talk about that because it's a discount I want to offer the audience at the end. But that dropped in for me like 5 months ago, that offering. In fact, I've had the idea to do these low cost activations for like, since I started this work, right? And every time I would show up to do it, it just wasn't quite there. It wasn't in alignment. And then recently I had this whole other trajectory for my business and my mission, which was around marketing. And we spoke about this too, marketing and teaching people how to do quantum marketing and channeling and all this. And that felt really alive and true for me 2 months ago. So I parked this other idea and I was putting all my life force into the marketing thing. And then I felt into it again. And suddenly it was like that timeline just, I don't know what happened to it. It obliterated itself. Something happened, something shifted. And then suddenly this one over here with the package or the whatever it is, the channeled stuff is back online now. And it's like, if I had been attaching to, but that was the timeline that I was on. That was the thing that wanted to be created for me. I would have missed that moment where that offering that has been for 4 years waiting to drop in was actually finally ready. Right. So we'll get little pings of things that are going to happen at some point. And because we're trying to force it, or it needs to be now, like for instance, tuning into a soulmate. I've been tuning into my soulmate for like 10 years and being like, where is he? Why isn't it? Where, you know, and then the things that need to take place for that to come in. And even my current situation, how that's evolving and shifting. I'm saying like, if I'm trying to cling and push and force this one thing now in this moment to be something that it's not yet, we're trying to like dig up that seed that we've planted in the ground and be like, are you fucking ready yet? And pull it out. When really it's like spirit's like, go over there to the cucumber patch because those cucumbers need tending. And when you come back over here, the strawberries will be ready. But we need to be constantly able to move with the flow of like, what is present now? What is alive now? And what I've seen in the past 6 months, particularly, is our earth grid, this matrix is not functioning the way that it used to. Things are really, really, really quick, really quick. We need to be hyper aware of what we're creating in any moment because it's so quick. And you will miss it. And that's not to freak people out, but it's like literally you press the snooze button on that idea, on that download, on that date, on that message, on whatever it is, you might miss it. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to get to the trajectory eventually, but it's like there are slipstreams happening everywhere, which are like, you know, in Mario Kart where you get that up level, the mushroom thing. What is it? The 1-up. And it's like, you can go on that speed ramp, the speed ramp thing. You know what I'm fucking talking about?
Absolutely.
Mario Kart. Yeah.
Up. Okay.
Yeah. It's like you can get on that slipstream. There's these little moments of like, here it is. Are you going to go? And then you're like, oh, you missed it. So your soul brings you another one. And you missed that one. So your soul brings you another one. But when you're tuned into the heart, you feel them in that moment. And you're like, I don't know why I need to reach out to this random Brandon dude on Instagram, send him a message, but I feel like I have to. And then it was like, blam, here we are. Right.
So crazy. So let's do this. This is how we met. So excuse me. I get these wonderful emails, and I'm bombarded in a beautiful way that I'm absolutely grateful for, with folks that want to come on the show and people who represent folks that want to come on the show. I got an email from somebody asking for someone. I don't remember who it was, but I remember that it wasn't in 100% alignment, which is no big deal, and that happens all the time, no big deal. But the second person, sort of as a throwaway, she just typed, "Hey, also maybe you might check out Beck Malonis," and just tagged you. And I was just like, okay. And so she had this whole thing for the person that didn't align and told me a ton of information about that. And then what I did was I just for some reason go, yeah, and then I click because again, I'm like you. I don't think things are here by accident. And I looked at your profile. I immediately was just like, holy shit, this is awesome. And then what happened next?
I messaged you. No, I messaged you. I was like, I got your follow and I was like, oh, I have to message this guy. And that was it. It was like,
it was awesome. I started following you. You messaged me, and then I told you about the email thing, and then you were actually getting set up with me through another thing, and I was just like, dude, just come on the show. And we've been buds ever since. That was the reason. I don't think I've done much with that like connection agency. I don't know. There's a bunch of them. But anyway, much love to those people, by the way. Thank y'all for this hookup, because this is that soul line shit, but it was within, you know, some things that weren't. So that's an important part of the process. So
yeah, and sometimes it shows up with a bunch of stuff attached to it, right? Like there's the stuff that you have to sift through of the like,
Yeah.
wait, hold on, is this my wish fulfillment or is this some shit that I need to sift through?
Did you?
Which is why we can't be attached.
Yeah, well, right. And then it's in there, but you'll miss it. But the hunt for it is so awesome. We used to have this plastic container. I don't know if you guys in Australia had this, mate, but we had this plastic container as kids. It had a bunch of sand in it, but it wasn't normal sand. It was like weird sand. And then there were a bunch of little pieces of bone in it, right? Dinosaur bones, okay? And then they gave you like a little brush and stuff, and you get to dig through this
Sounds,
weird
yeah.
sand and like get this stuff out, right? But there was some that they had pictured on the box. I swear to God, weren't in there because you dig everywhere and they're like, yeah, no, it's in there. But maybe it was, and you just kept missing it, or it was too small, or you just give up. You know what I mean? One of those things. But if you stick with it, you'll find all the things that are there. You just need to dig a little bit, and then it's that process. That's like why we do this. You know what I mean?
That's also like, it's a great analogy for manifestation because it's like we could be so close, right? It could be,
Yeah.
it could be
Yeah.
just right there. And we're holding the frequency, we're holding the frequency, we're holding the frequency. And then we let some bullshit thoughts of, oh, it's not going to happen, I give up, slip into our awareness. And oh, we're not in that timeline anymore.
You know what
Right.
I
So that's
think?
why I've been so like, no, I'm on this ramp. I'm about to accelerate and I'm holding that. And I have to be so hyper conscious of my thoughts lately because I see the old, oh, it's not going to work out. Oh, you're delusional, whatever it is, like start to slip into my mind. I'm like, no, I'm on the speed ramp and it's showing up and I'm holding on to that, even though my reality right now is not reflecting. I mean, it kind of is in certain ways, but like it's not quite there. But I trust what I feel, right? I trust the feeling in my internal being telling me it's possible, it's going to happen. Like just hold on, just hold on, just hold on. And this is a vision that I've held for fucking 10 years when I started this journey, right? I had the download of you're here to help lots of people and this and that and whatever. I didn't know. And this is the other thing. I didn't know what it looked like at that time when I was manifesting my best life. I didn't even believe in manifestation. I was like, this law of attraction shit, it's probably just a bunch of woo-woo crap, but like my life is so miserable that what do I have to to lose, right? And so I sat down. I was like, what would I want to create for myself? And I wrote down some vague like some vague things like I want to work for myself. I want to just be myself and get paid to be myself. I want to talk. I want to help people. That was it. I want to travel. I want to live like a gypsy and go wherever I want. Didn't know the coaching industry was a thing. Didn't even know that I had these gifts. Didn't know anything really about where I was going with my life or what the potential was. And life fed me more about that desire as I went through the journey. And then I started being introduced to healers and shamans and getting into the healing. And I was like, oh my God, shit, I'm a healer. And then it was like, oh my God, I'm a channeler. And then, oh my God, I'm here to like speak on stages and share messages and oh my, this and that. And all these things dropped in. But it's like, I wasn't ready to be shown the full vision because if you had have told me in 2018, 2017, whenever it was, I started visualizing this stuff, you're here to channel aliens and bring frequencies through your body and talk to God every day and be in this bliss state. I'd just be like, that's not even something that's accessible from my mind. So I wouldn't even know what to look for. It's even in a partner, like sometimes we think we want something because of how it looks or how we think it will be, but there are certain things about a certain person that we're meant to be with or experience that we're meant to have that look nothing like what we think. So for instance, a good example of this is I've been really for the past 6 months looking at this list of what I desire in a partner and why do I desire those things. So I used to think that I wanted this medicine man who was on my level and we were this divine power couple, like God and goddess fucking healing the world together, twin flame journey shit, right? And he's super successful in the healing industry and people know him and our relationship is all over Instagram and all this stuff. Super fit, good looking, Greek god kind of marble statue, all this stuff. And I've been reflecting on like, is that truly what my soul wants? Or does my soul actually really just want a really grounded, stable dude who is heart open and spiritual? Obviously, I need that, who can be my safe space when I'm going off and sharing to all these people. And maybe actually that's my sacred personal life that I don't need to have all over Instagram and have everyone be part of, you know, this journey. And that's just my thing. That's my slice of paradise. And maybe that's what I want. I just want this little slice of paradise to this like really basic bitch home life that I can go to after being this big energy channel and traveling the world and sharing every part of me with the whole everyone, right? So stuff like that, it's a process of examining where is this desire coming from? Is it coming from how I want to appear to be? Because to me, maybe I some part of me wanted validation through that. Look at this amazing man that I called in, and he makes me look good because he's also, but it's like, I don't need a man next to me who's a powerful healer to know that I'm a powerful healer, to make myself look like a powerful healer, right? Like, I don't need the whole of Instagram knowing the ins and outs of my sacred relationship and how we're working through everything all the time to have a sacred relationship that's deeply meaningful. And right. So it's so interesting. So many things I've seen that I thought that I wanted, I've been questioning, why do I want them? And what is it in that experience that I think that I want, but it's not actually going to fulfill me? Yeah.
It's the most important question. And good on you for being so mature and being able to get there, because that is the thing. You're tempted by what's possible for you. And yes, it's all possible for you, but is it really what you want? And
Yeah.
really, like you said, there's a beauty to being balanced, but also way out. And I've got my, so the metaphor I use for my wife and I, my beautiful, amazing rock Mary, she is the string and I'm the kite, basically. So like you, we're out here
It'll
on
be
this
the flip
crazy mission,
side. Yeah.
flying around and we're doing crazy stuff. And then, but you need your anchor, you need your string. And she is a reliable, she is the sturdiest rope, I mean, ever. She's ride or die. She loves what, like, laughs her ass off, just having a great time, but you need that. And they need us to be there and vice versa, right? So not everybody can be kites, but every kite needs a string. So
Mm.
it's important though to have that balance. And it's interesting that of course you would. I mean, of course, because you're mature as fuck, is to come to this realization into your awareness that it's what was most beneficial for you is this more heart-centered, more grounded element to it.
Mm.
And just like I was just talking to my wife about this right before we went live here, you know, we have all this technology, we have these lights, we have an incredible studio here, we do amazing things. There's art and such creativity going on here, but within all the lights and all of the stuff, I've got to remain grounded. And so we have the added benefit of just stepping outside, and we were just barefoot under this massive oak tree, 100-something-year-old oak tree right outside this wall here, and just being like, you know, it's great to have all that, but you need the grounded too. You've got to have the
Mm.
balance. It can't be all like heal, 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 like lights, 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 and all this crazy shit. It's really about this smooth, easy balance. So how do you create balance in your life?
Yeah. Well, because there's so much of my life is tied into this purpose that I have. And that's by design, right? Because I think it's a big purpose that I'm here to achieve, and I love it. And I'd say most of my life is devoted to God, to being with God, to being with my spirit, to being in other realms doing stuff. So I really need to find the space and time to do things that bring me back to my humanity constantly, because that's the risk that we run, people like you and me, or people on this spiritual journey, is we don't actually seed ourselves here because we're lost in being off everywhere. And it's like, that's great, but how are you going to help humans, which is what you're here to do, if you're off everywhere all the time and you're not grounded and you can't even have a fucking conversation? Like, that was me about a year, 2 years into my Kundalini awakening. I was so ungrounded. I was so sensitive. I was so emotional. I thought I was better than everyone, because that's where you kind of go. You go through this God complex when you have that awakening, and suddenly you have all these gifts that I was like, I don't even want to talk to normal people. Like, they're beneath me, right? Like, I can't even have, what am I to talk to you about? Shoes? Like, boring, right? So I had this ego about it. And it was only after realizing, like, there was this time in my life where I was really connecting to other timelines of me, where I was a literal goddess walking on earth, or I was an alien, or whatever it was, these superhuman timelines. And spirit came in and was like, they're great and they're important timelines for you to connect to. But the most important one is you here now as a human, right? So your humanity is what is the most important right now in this lifetime. You chose to be human. And that is so important. So a lot of us have, when we have these gifts and we have this purpose, or we feel like we're a starseed or a light worker, or whatever it is, this obsession with escaping our bodies and making everything spiritual and escapism, basically. And I want to go back home to the planet from whence I came, when actually the reality is you chose to ground yourself here and be human for a reason. Because if you didn't, you would have chosen to be a spirit guide. You would have chosen to be one of the many galactic beings we have supporting us, not Earth, they're Earth side, but they're not physical. But you chose to be physical for some purpose, for some reason. So if you're on this journey, and for me, this is really true to me, doing stuff that really makes my human happy, like taking care of my body, dancing, playing music, like hanging out with my family, being in nature, eating good food. Something like, recently it's dropped in, like having someone in my life who really takes care of their body, goes to the gym. They're really obsessed with like taking care of their body is really good for me because that's what I need, right? Because the other stuff is so natural to me. And it's so easy for me to get caught up in everything as this big spiritual thing and lost in that, and then forget for 5 days to eat because I've been crying and orgasming and seeing God in bed for God, you know what I mean? So I'm not taking care of my human, and I need my human to fulfill this mission. So it's like making sure there's that balance. I think that was the question you asked me. How do you have that balance?
Yeah. Nailed it.
Yeah. Because otherwise, what's the point? Like, what's the point of having these gifts? What's the point of being connected to spirit if you don't have one of your feet planted here? Like, I feel like I'm this bridge where one foot is planted here and one foot is planted elsewhere, and I'm straddling both of them, and I can be there. But, you know, for instance, like having a partner who's always there as well, we'd get so lost. We would get so lost and so detached from reality that I just see it would actually be really bad for me. Like I could see that would be not good. Because I need someone like your rock, like pulling you back down and being like, did you eat, babe?
Not everybody in the party can take acid at the same time. You need somebody that's got their shit together that can really make sure that you stay away from sharp stuff and just remember that you need to breathe. I had somebody one time on a trip, I was laying at the bottom of a pool on acid, and I was watching the rain from underneath the water, but laying on the bottom of the pool, and people would swim down and bring me up because I just forget that I needed oxygen, right? Because you need your breath forever, you're superhuman. Anyway,
it reminds me of also acro yoga. Like you need to have a base and you need to have a fly. Like without the base, the fly can't fly. And so we choose people in our lives to give us that contrast, and then we judge them for not being more like us and being like, oh, well, but you're not noticing that person has different traits that you don't have that complement you. And so for me, in partnerships, any sort of partnership, whether that's friendship, whether that's romantic, whether that's family, whatever it is, business partnerships, that balance and that like the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, the up and the down, like that we need the dark and the light. We need to have people who balance us out that aren't always just like us, because that's the tendency when you're on the spiritual path to only choose people that are like you. But then it's like you're only getting that same version of yourself reflected back to you all the time. That one fractal, that one thing that, so sorry to keep going on that, but I wanted to finish that by saying that.
Never apologize ever. And you speak how you speak, young lady. We'd love to hear you. The interesting part too about this is whenever you start to boil these sort of things down, we start to get to the concept of sympathetic resonance. Like that which you are is what you're seeing. And I love what you said, the metaphor earlier about manifestation. So I wanted to come back to the way that I picture some people, like you said, it's so close and they were right there. You can picture like a miner, like a gold miner, digging for gold in a mine or whatever. And he gets in a tunnel and he's like, okay, here we go. There's a story. I forget the details of it, so I'm not going to butcher it. But basically, somebody got 2 feet away from gold, dug on this thing, spent millions of dollars in 18
I've heard that one
times. And then they got all the way to this thing and stopped. And somebody came in, picked it up 2 feet later, struck like the biggest find ever. And it feels like that's what happens a lot of the time with the manifestations, and especially like you said, that things are sort of supersonic with speed right now, and it's you're right there. So really, what's your tip to that? I mean, just keep digging, right? Stay on course.
So hold on, sorry, so what I'm seeing, like energy, or what I feel is that it's certain things, right? So certain manifestations are easier and they're readier to come in because there's not resistance, or there's not a certain level of embodiment that you need to reach to hold that thing. Certain things just take more time because of the frequency that you need to hold. So for instance, say I was Tony Robbins, say that was the level of vision that I had to get to. Imagine the preparation of holding that level of energy, that level of frequency, that self-belief, the level that it would take to achieve something like that versus to call in a full-time job. Like it's all dependent on the level of, and it's not saying that some things are harder to manifest than others, because that's not true. Everything is the same, but it's like the amount of the resonance you need to have is different, right? So in order to, if you believe that it's going to be that much harder to be Tony Robbins, so it's all internal is what it's what I'm trying to say. We create more of a story about why that would be so much harder. So we need to almost have more self-faith to be able to achieve that, because we believe it's a harder path to walk rather than get a job. Oh, that's easier. I can call that in. It's not a problem. So it's in direct relation to how much of our internal stuff is blocking that. And so how much more do we need to then embody that future trait or that future energy or whatever it is to be able to collapse the time and call it in? Because sometimes we have been in an ingrained way of being or a pattern, or like, so for instance, my fear of failure, fear of being seen, fear of whatever that is. I'm 29, I'm 30. Just trying to like make myself sound younger. I'm 30. My soul is old though. Right. My soul,
way better than your 20th. Trust me.
They are. I am already feeling it. My soul has been ingrained in that path of failure and disappointment, and that soul wound has been going and reverberating through thousands of lifetimes. So could you imagine me deciding to shift that pattern that I've had as karma for thousands of lifetimes? Like me deciding one day, oh, it's going to now all work out and I'm going to get there and everything's going to work out. It's like, no, we need to keep consistently reprogramming and holding and reprogramming and holding and reprogramming and holding. So what happens is we don't call the thing in, because we can call it in, but we won't be able to hold it because we will immediately go back to that old conditioning. So we're being prepared in essence. And sometimes that preparation takes time, because it's like God doesn't want to give, or the universe, your higher self, your soul doesn't want you to experience something before it's too soon. And then it fucks up. And then you go through the painful experience of, oh, I manifested this too fast and now it's the wrong thing or whatever. Even in that experience, there's something for you. All the times I manifested soulmates that were not quite there, or opportunities that got taken, like there were gifts in all of it, but they were also preparing me for the true manifestation of the wish fulfillment or the desire. And I see, like, for my big vision, I really wasn't. For years I've been saying, but I'm there. I am capable of holding this vision. Why aren't I there? I have everything that it takes. And I'm like, actually, the woman I see capable of holding that mission, that's some big vagina energy that she is embodying. Big fucking and vagina or dick and whatever you want. It's like both of them.
Bonus holes now.
But big bonus hole energy that she has to embody, right? To not give up when it gets hard, to keep believing, to hold that faith so things can then move really quickly. And then when I'm in it, it's so easy and effortless. But to make something look easy and effortless, the amount of work that needs to go in the background to then embody that so it's easy and effortless is crazy. Like even the amount of energy that moves through my body, this amount of energy would literally have killed me 2 years ago. There is no shadow of a doubt in my mind that the energy running through me now would kill me 2 years ago. And I wasn't ready to hold it. And so spirit wasn't going to give it to me and be like, go activate thousands of people on fucking broadcasts 2 years ago when I was in chaos, because it would send me insane. And so I was chipped away at prepared. My vessel was cleared. The density was cleared. My cells were upgraded for years and years and years, which is this offering that I've just downloaded. They were telling me, like, I received them and I'm like, holy fuck, like I'm going to blow up everyone that received these. Are powerful. And I've received them. And it's not me. It's not my frequency. So I can't say it's me. It's something channeling through me, but it's like, I literally couldn't hold that frequency to transmit it before now. And it's perfect that it's come through now. And it wasn't like, you can't have this. It's like, wait, because it's going to be so much better when you can hold it. And then it's like, boom, you can reach so many more people and it's perfect, rather than me trying to get this caterpillar out of its chrysalis with a fucked up arm and its face is all like munted. And I'm like, come on, be ready.
What imagery though? It's like horrific, but also so great because it is such a visceral image on what the universe feels that you're doing with this gift, right?
Yeah.
You're ripping this thing out in utero, like really in incubi. And so, man, that's fucked up, but a beautiful analogy and well done.
Yeah.
You're the only one I know that could pull that off. And anyway, now because we're still talking about it, that none of us will forget this, but that's one of the keys here, right? Is to let it sink in. It's also like the people who just get $400 million in the lottery and then a year later broke, everybody off at everybody, like everything sucks. You know somebody who did this?
Literally my dad, like literally. He's a gambler and I love him. He's an amazing man, amazing businessman, but whenever he receives these large influxes, he hasn't been able to hold them because he hasn't embodied that love. Like he can manifest like that. Like he's always calling it in. He's always having these big wins, but he can't hold on to it. Right. And so it's like the spirit keeps being like, prepare yourself to hold it. Prepare yourself, you like train yourself to hold it. But he can't. And that's what happens. It's exactly that. Or like, say I was given this vision, right? It all came true. I see so clearly why 2 years ago I couldn't have been doing what I'm doing. Any little comment that anyone gave towards me that was like, you're full of shit, you're negative, you're making it up, you're not, whatever it is, like any little piece of negative feedback would have crushed me because I was so attached to validation and so attached to my external reality reflecting who I am internally. And I reached a level now of just don't give a shit what people think about me. And it's freeing, but it's why I can be a pure channel now. And I think now if someone was to give me a hateful message, I just laugh. I'm like, well, that's your opinion. You're entitled to it.
That's big bonus hole energy right there.
Big bonus hole energy, right? But I would tell myself, oh yeah, I'd be fine, but it would secretly break me up. Or I would tell myself I would be fine if my soulmate came in, but actually that person being in my reality would just make me feel so insecure and it would make me spiral. Whereas now how I show up is like the trust of like what is meant for me will be mine. And I feel secure because I'm able to hold myself in the process of that desire showing up, right? So it's like, we think we're being punished and we're so frustrated, but actually it's a process of like, how much do you really truly believe that it's yours? Because if you truly believe that it was yours and it was meant to be, the amount of time wouldn't matter because you'd understand that it's going to come at perfect timing, not your timing. It might not be your timing. I wouldn't, for 5 years of struggling in my business and going through the initiations and asking for my soulmate since I was 20. And I can see now in hindsight from this perspective why it didn't happen. None of those things happened when I wanted them to happen. But we don't have that understanding in the moment. And that's why we need to tune into the hearts, knowing that that desire is innately meant to be ours, that we will be guided to that in perfect timing. And even when things seem like this fucking shit timing, it's like right person, wrong time, or whatever it is, even that's perfect. Right? Like it's perfect.
I know, I agree. I believe you.
And we think we have this idea of how we want it to play out, and the how we want it to play out, it's not magical in the way that it can be. Like just the things that have been so divinely orchestrated that you're like, if I had have tried to design that from the level of my mind, there is no way I could have. Yeah, it's shit. It's like,
it's limiting.
Not as good. Yeah.
This is what people who are sitting there like, oh, I just want $1 million, $1 million. It's like, okay, well, what does that look like? They haven't even thought about it. They don't know what that means. They don't know why they want it. They don't understand what that is. It's just a thing. And even if you do know that why you want it, well, then what does it look like? Have you even actualized that in your life? What does it look? Does it come to you every 2 weeks? Does it come once a week? What are those amounts? What is it? How does that work out? Who and what percentage are you going to share that with, if you are at all? What are you going to invest in, or how's it going to change your life, if at all? Like, these things are questions beyond the, oh yeah, I heard somebody say that $1 million is cool, and I think I want that because bitches and hoes and stuff, right? So yeah, I'll take $1 million. It's like, oh, okay, well, why do you want that? I don't know, I just money, right? I like money, like in that movie. It's great.
And
okay.
that why is the frequency that we want to feel, right? So tap into the frequency that you want to feel and embody the like, oh no shit, right? Like that why that's the authentic heart desire. Like, so for instance, recently I was tuning into the yearning that my heart had to love and be loved, and this to embody the lover within me. And when I really was like, oh my God, I don't need another person to really like feel this. And I was blissed out for like fucking days, weeks in this love bubble of being with myself and being like, this is what my soul wanted me to experience, that love, that frequency of love. And that's why I want to call in a lover, but I don't need to call in a lover to have that experience. And then I was like, oh, well, it would be cool if I called in a lover to mirror this experience to me, but I actually don't need him. And then bam, 4 days later, I met someone. So it's like,
that's the key.
Once you just let go of the manifestation completely. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Which is, I remember at the start of this journey, people would say that, be detached, surrender it. Once you let go, it will come. And I'd be like, right, you need to let go. You need to let go because then it will come. But then it's like I did a podcast with someone recently about trying to become love or embody love because it's a means to an end. Like, I'm going to embody love so then I attract more love. I'm going to embody love so I make more money. I'm going to embody love because this, because that, because whatever. I'm going to embody abundance so I call in money. And it's like, you're good. Like, when you're trying to do that, then it's not unconditional, firstly, and it's not authentic because it's like, there's conditions to it. There's a condition on the external reality or there's an attachment to, I'm only doing this to get this. When we can reach that state, just because it's a state that we want to experience, like freedom or joy or love or orgasmic pleasure, whatever it is, just for the sake of being that, I just want to fucking be love. I don't even give a fuck if no one sees me or feels me in this love or reciprocates that love. I just want to be love because it feels good for me to be love. And that's it. And then suddenly that thing that we think is going to give us that experience just doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter because you're like, I don't need that. And that's where the detachment comes from, because you're like, I already feel the experience of me being with a lover in the past couple of weeks was so deep, so visceral, so real. It was like there was literally someone else there with me, and there wasn't. That it didn't matter. Like it just didn't. I was like, I'm having the experience that I want to have. So what does it matter if it's an illusion, it's in my mind, or it's an experience in my reality? Because this is the whole thing is an illusion that we're just tripping balls.
Yeah,
And
we can't prove any of this is real. Yeah.
exactly. So why wouldn't you just skip to how can I cultivate this feeling? And so that, that's a big manifestation hack that lots of people talk about, but they don't actually give you the how to do that. And that's what really I found really challenging at the start, because I'd be like, okay, surrender. And how the fuck am I going to feel like I have a lover when I don't have a lover? Like, I don't know how to feel rich when I'm broke. I don't know how to, whatever it is. But your soul will guide you through these little pings of how to feel that, right? So for me, it was like learning to love myself. It was going through the healing journey to release all this stuff around my own self-love. For money stuff, I still have money stuff that I'm working through, but like, how do I feel supported no matter what? And how do I look at all the abundance that is in my life as someone who lives in the Western world and doesn't have to go to a full-time job? And there's so many things, so many reasons for us to be grateful in the moment. And we think when this thing is going to come, then I'll feel grateful, I'll feel fulfilled. But you see so many people, they have everything. I was listening to an Aubrey Marcus thing the other day. I love Aubrey Marcus. I think he's great. He's only recently come into my field. And he was talking about, I'm going to go do ayahuasca because I have everything that I want to, but I feel really unfulfilled and empty. And it's like, imagine having all the desires that you wanted and you still felt like shit because you were still like yearning for something else outside of you, or it's not big enough, or it needs to be bigger, or I thought that this money would bring me the joy and the freedom that I wanted, but actually I still feel constrained and I still feel not good enough. And so it's like, reverse engineer that, like get yourself clear in feeling that before it's come, because otherwise when it comes, you just won't even appreciate it. And you'll be anxious when that person comes into your life that is there to love you, because you'll always be like, oh my God, they're going to leave. Or, you'll be so attached because you think that that's the thing, but actually it's not. So I just,
Or
yeah.
I'm not worthy. I'm not, I don't
Yeah.
deserve this. I'm not worthy. All that stuff comes up in the examples you said earlier about the times that you attracted something that wasn't right, but it was right because it needed to be there so you could check off the, oh, worthiness. Oh, what
Mhm.
being lied to feels like. Like I can check those off. I can spot that now. It sharpens your discernment, right? It guides you into deeper understanding so that you can be ready for the boo that was also over here doing the same exact thing as you were in
Mm.
the same respects, like calling you in. I mean, and I'm sure he sees this in the same way, that you're his manifestation in the same direction. And maybe this is just a temporary truth for you both. I
That's
hope.
what I wanted to say. Exactly. Like I'm not even, we're not even, right now it's nice. Let's see.
There you go. Just let it just ride the wave because the wave seems
Yeah.
nice, right?
Yeah.
And so what I'm very curious to see your communication with extraterrestrials, aliens.
Mhm.
What do you prefer to call them, or what do they prefer to be called, or what's your relationship with that feel like, and how did that start, if you don't mind?
Yeah. It's interesting because even though I'm so connected to so many of them, I still honestly, like, my relationship to channeling to spirit is it's one voice in my head. It's my own voice. And it's not this man's voice, an angel speaking to me, or different beings. It's my own voice translating frequency into my own voice and feelings and visceral sensations in my body. So I don't actually experience any of these galactic beings any differently to how I experience channeling directly from source. And so it's almost like when I'm channeling galactics, there's different levels of consciousness, right? And galactics are like up here on the timeline, we're kind of here. And then there's source frequency. If you can, it's really like, I kind of not answering the question by saying this, but if you can cut out the need for any of that middleman stuff, it's there, it's supporting us. But if you can go directly to source, it kind of contains all of this information anyway. So for me, when I do tune into, I prefer to think of them as high dimensional light beings, because there are also not so high dimensional light beings who I've also interacted with, and they're great fun. Love you guys. But I prefer to only consciously connect to high dimensional light beings. They have different flavors. Their frequencies feel different in my body. So for instance, like a Lyran feline to me would have this really royal kind of energy, really bold, really like lioness vibes, right? Arcturian to me feels heavy, grounded. So it's a different frequency because they have different codes within them that they're here to share. A Pleiadian would be very high frequency, like it's like giggly. I feel very giggly. It's very angelic. A Syrian feels very grounding in my body. So for me, it's not, they don't come in. Sometimes they're like, we're the Syrians, we're talking to you. You are also Syrian. Now we're going to build some pyramids together. That's rare for me. It's more, I feel all of them all the time. I'm tapped into all of them all the time. I'm tapped into infinite different, which is very overwhelming, right? And I still am learning to discern and be like, who do I need to talk to today? Because what I do is I open a channel and I'm like, who wants to help me today? And they all come flooding in and I'm like, fuck, who is it? So there's moments where I'm very clear on, oh, this is Mother Mary and she's coming through so strongly. And, or this is Jesus, or this is Kuan Yin, or this is a dragon energy coming through. And I know that that's the frequency I need to work with the most in the moment. On a podcast like this, or if I'm working with people who are really tapped into different star races, it's a bit more difficult to discern who and what is who, because it's this big blend of all these different frequencies coming in from all these different places, because they're going to resonate with different people listening to this. So someone might be listening to this and picking up my codes around, I don't know, the priestess lineage, and they're really getting these like heart codes, these Venus codes. They're getting like divine feminine energy. They're getting Kuan Yin, Mother Mary, like Isis, you know, that's what they're getting through this. Someone else could be listening to this and be like, oh, I really feel this dragon energy in her. And that's what I'm getting. So my job is to be this container that holds and has access points to all these different races and civilizations, to then channel them all through simultaneously, which is it's a lot of energy. But then the people receiving them, their radio station or their soul is tuned into, like, this race is what I need to receive from. This civilization is what I need to receive from. So I remember someone did a starseed reading for me at one point a couple of years ago, and he said to me, Beck, this is weird. Like, usually people have one or two main starseed, their origin and their last life. Like people who are not like they've incarnated from somewhere else, right? And he said to me, I feel there's so many for you. Like, you're tapped into so many. It's not necessarily that you've had lifetimes in all these places. It's more just like you have access points to all of them. I'm like a big directory for all of these different beings.
Cool.
And so he's like, I don't know which one you're meant to be tuning into right now, but dragon energy is coming through. So let's talk about dragon energy. But it's like at any moment, I feel which one is the most resonant for the audience or for whatever it is. And I bring that through. And they have different flavors or different reasons to call them in. So for instance, like, an example off the top of my head would be Syrians work a lot with pyramids, and they're very shamanic feeling. So anytime I'm doing any sort of earth work, grid work, creating energetic pyramids in the quantum to amplify my creations or the offerings or whatever it is, like working with my clients to expand their reach through these pyramids, or I'm coding the internet or whatever, I use Syrian energy when I'm opening portals and stargates. That's what they're, you know, if you look into the pyramids were pointing to specific constellations, and a lot of it was Sirius B, to connect and open up like a flow of energy between that planet and our planet. So they're very big with portal work. Someone like the Arcturians, they have a lot of technology. I see them as really techie. I don't know, some people don't see them that way, but I see them as they have really advanced technology. I wouldn't even know how to explain that more deeply, like what that means when I say technology. It feels like they have, I wouldn't say DNA as well, because DNA feels more like Orion energy. Arcturians, okay, so one thing that thank you guys. I was like, help. One thing I channeled from the Arcturians a couple years ago was they took me up onto this viewing platform, and they were like, we're going to give you this ability to go up to this dimensional viewing platform and see all the timelines and navigate them from this big viewing platform of like discerning which is the timeline. So something like that, that's an Arcturian technology where they have this viewing platform. Yeah, some examples there.
It's gnarly. Did it have like handles on it or music or anything or custom?
The way that I saw it was this big platform, and then there was all these rainbow bridges coming off the platform. And then I would spin this thing. So they told me to, I don't know if I can share. Yeah, I can share this. Cool. Sometimes I'm like, is this technology I'm meant to be sharing? Because sometimes it's like the level of consciousness you need to be at. Like if someone with a low level of consciousness had access to this technology, it's not a good thing. But for instance, yes, classified, right? Or like you have to have a certain heart purity. Yeah. So what they would do, they'd be like, what is the frequency of what you want to create? Like tune into the frequency of exactly what it is. And so I'd be like, okay, the frequency is joy, or it's orgasmic pleasure. So I'd really refine that frequency first. I'd step onto this platform. I would broadcast this frequency out, would spin this thing. So it'd be this big star thing spinning, configuring all the timelines. And then it would be like, it'd stop. And then from my heart, I saw a beam of a rainbow bridge guiding me to one or two of these timelines that would light up. And then I'd walk out to the end of that timeline. I'd feel that timeline. I'd be like, is this the resonant frequency? Does it feel like the best one? And I'd do that until I found the one where my whole body was like, this is the one. Then I would anchor myself into that timeline, and then I'd spin the thing again and it would collapse all the other timelines. So it's like crazy quantum shit like that. It's like,
That's
wow.
awesome.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
way to describe that experience.
Yeah. And now that's like more integrated, where I don't have to now, every time I want to jump a timeline, go up to this viewing platform and do that. It's almost like that technology is in me now. And so for instance, like the other day, I was supporting a friend who's going through a really gnarly breakup. And there was this moment where I've been trying to support her. And I was like, I knew that she needed to separate from him because he was going through this thing, this big dark night of the soul, and it wasn't good for her. Right. And at that time, when I was first tuning into it, it felt really true for me to say, you need to let him go completely. You need to let him go completely. There was just this, like, you have to stop attaching and walk away for your own good. I didn't know why. And as we were talking, I just suddenly had this big vision, and I could see from this viewing platform all of these timelines and things and configurations and all these versions of them. And it was so clear to me in that moment of like, her walking away and stepping into this energy of her empowerment and self-worth was going to fucking break him, which was exactly what he needed to then become the man. And then some other configuration, they were going to come back together, but I couldn't tell her that because I was like, but then there's still the attachment. If I tell her that to walk away, but then it's going to break him and he's going to, like, so I had to like discern, how do I communicate this in a way where she has the hope still, and she's not completely broken because she knows that he's her soulmate and whatever, but is not attached to him doing the work, because there was other timelines where he didn't choose to do the work. He continued to take drugs and party and not do what he needed to do. And then there was someone else for her. So it was like communicating the very nuanced little, if he makes this decision, it's that timeline. If he makes that decision, it's that, like there's all these different ways. The highest probability was that they were going to come back together. And that timeline was I could see that she was still locked into that because she had this feeling of like, this is not over. But how to communicate that to her in a way of like, but there's like, it needs to happen. I saw their whole relationship from this higher perspective of like, you had to have that fight, this thing had to come in to clear this karma, and then you had to come back at this time, and then you had to go through this then, and blah, blah, blah. So you could finally align and be able to give each other what you needed in the higher perspective. And most people don't have that higher perspective, and they're living their life being like, but I want the thing now, which brings us back to what we were saying before, not understanding that so many little bits and pieces have to kind of fall into place. So that's why certain galactic beings are really good for that, because they have that higher perspective, which is why you would work with them. They have access to technologies. They have access to ways of understanding the universe. So many of them that I connect with actually have released their identity as being part of a race. So they're not Arcturian, they're not Syrian, they're not this, they're not that. They're a collective or a council of souls who have the same purpose. So for instance, one of the councils that I work with, that has channeled through that offering, it was Christ consciousness, really, was that was what they were upholding, the frequency. And there was a council of high beings of light who channel Christ consciousness frequency. And there was ascended masters on this team or this panel or whatever the council is. But it's almost like when they come to me, they don't step forward and say, this is who I am, because they've let go of their identity and it doesn't matter. Whereas I think a lot of channelers are like, oh, it's the Arcturian council of whatever. But I think the beings that I work with, because it's such this pure frequency of, I'm not saying that the other ones are attached to their identity, but I think for that person and that understanding and that audience, they need to have that identification to their Arcturians. I'm an Arcturian Stasi, like they need that access point. But the people who resonate with my message and the people I'm channeling for, it's just love. Like that's all that it is. Just this very high frequency of Christ consciousness. We've let go of our identities. We've let go of our personal needs and wants and desires. And we're just operating it. How can I serve love? And so that's the difference to me. While I work with these beings, it's not the same as I think as a lot of other people when they work with galactic beings, because I'm not attached to one race or one kind of star race, and I'm not really that interested, to be honest, at this point in really getting to know one star race and working closely with them. Like I prioritize my if I can channel something directly from source, from my own oversoul network, which has all this information, then why would I get it through one filter? Wouldn't I want the highest perspective possible, which is the perspective that's transcended all of these different races and timelines and is just God channeling through source, right? Yeah.
It's amazing. What
But
an interesting way to put it, though. Because you feel that some channelers then will actually only access that and skip out on or miss their opportunity to access source, and so therefore, perhaps
yeah.
I mean, more legitimately, they're only accessing that and limiting themselves in that way, and so they're only getting that version of the story, as it were.
Yeah, I was shown this years ago. So I actually had resistance at the start to even thinking I was channeling aliens. I didn't even know I was channeling aliens for a really long time. And when my gifts opened up, it was very much like this voice. It was me and this voice, and it was source or my higher self. And that was it. That's all I needed to know. And then when I started getting this awareness, like I was brought through this awareness through all these synchronicities and things dropping in. And then I did this Ascension accelerator, which was all just a bunch of bullshit, but it was a lesson I needed to go through to introduce me to all the different frequencies of the different beings and be like, oh, I'm working with a variety of beings and it's not just this one thing. And what I was shown was that it doesn't really matter. Like it really doesn't matter. It's all coming from the same place, and trying to be like, it's coming from this being or that being. That's an identity level human needing to feel important thing. Oh, I'm a channeler for high dimensional beings. Oh, I'm a Syrian starseed. Oh, I'm in this. Oh, I'm in that. And it doesn't matter, because really truly what they're doing is tuning into source. So why would you go? So even like an ascended master or an angel, I work a lot with them. Like I work a lot with ascended masters. I work a lot with angels, love Jesus, love Archangel Michael, love Mother Mary, love all these frequencies. But they're just one fractal of source, giving you one perspective or one flavor or one energy. Like the archangels are source split into 7 of the, or I don't know how many there are. I think there's 7, 12. I don't even know, because it's not important to me, right? But they're split into different fractals of the divine power of God, right? So there's Archangel Michael, who is protection. There is oh God, I can't even tell you what, Raphael, who is love, or whatever it is, right? There's one Gabriel, who's the messenger. I could be wrong, by the way, as I'm saying all of this, because it's not something that
You're nailing
I
all this.
sit.
7 archangels.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys, for supporting me.
You're nailing all of
But
it.
it's like we can choose to focus on these fractals of the different aspects, or we can just go to the one that has all the fractals within it, which is the source. So I think I'm absolutely not negating that there are beings that work on different levels, but for me, that stuff has never been important. So even when I was tuning into my own galactic lifetimes and all of that stuff, for a little bit, I got tripped up and I was like, oh, that's so cool. I was a dragon, or I was a Syrian, and great. But like, it doesn't fucking matter. It doesn't matter.
You know what I kind of think of with this is it's sort of like a teacher that can lead 10 different students to the same answer with the math problem 10 different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
so the teacher is so great, source, right, is so great that it knows that this particular individual will attract these individuals that need to
Yeah.
be spoken to or feel that they are in connection with this one thing,
Yeah.
because they've all sort of like gotten on board with an idea. And really, that's the only thing that's going to get them out of this box and maybe on the other side to realize, yes, that once you transcend this, it's not necessarily the person, or you're representing an idea, or you're embodying a decision of a timeline, of a vibe of a timeline. And
Yeah.
so it's really interesting when you start looking at this as well, because we look at these niches also in any discipline. You can do this in the conspiracy game, in the UFO game for sure. Some folks stop at the nuts and bolts thing. Hey, they're from other planets, they're from Zeta
Mm.
Reticuli right over there. They built it, flew that bitch over here. That's the only option. It's like, okay. And that's where you're hanging out, and that's fine. Same thing, Bigfoot, anything else. There's many levels to awarenesses, or even just being able to conceptually consider what's possible when it comes to these things. That's what I love most about this, is it's about critical thinking, but in the sense of that it opens you up and breaks you free, and it liberates you from those limitations that we talked about earlier, that attachment, because it's an attachment to an idea that it can't be anything other than Archangel fill in the blank, or it can't be in
Mm.
anything other than that Bigfoot is a creature of interdimensionality. He's not an ancient hominid that just could be hiding out. It can't be the case. So there's some interesting hills to die on, as it were, when it comes
And
to ideas.
I also want to say, which is dropping through to say, we almost put all this power outside of ourselves in these
Yeah,
angels and
there you
these,
go.
it's Kali Ma doing it, it's the Arcturians doing it, and they're not fucking doing anything. They're us, right? And we can't say I am God and I am all powerful and I am it's so funny. I actually had this experience the other weekend with my lover, and he was trying to get me to admit that I was God, right? Because I'm very careful to admit I am God, I'm a creator,
Mhm.
but I would never say I am God, because I think that has gotten us into a lot of problems as civilization and Atlantis thinking we are gods, when really there's source, and then we are gods. We are fractals of source, but we are not all of source, right? We're one fractal of source. Anyway, so he was getting me on this long journey, asking me all these questions to lead me to the question of I am God. And I was there covering my head, being like, yeah, I guess I'm God, right? Because we can't admit to ourselves that power of protection that Archangel Michael has, that power of light that is the infinite source and creator, that is all of the love, actually exists within us. So those archetypes, so for instance, Mother Mary, Jesus, these ascended master, these beings, they are a frequency that we can pull into our own body and they become us. So for instance, like to me, a priestess is an empty vessel for whatever flavor to shine through, that needs to be received at any given moment. So there was this book called The Tantric Quest by Daniel something, Oda, maybe. And it's about this man going out to meet this tantrika in the woods. And he asked her, who are you? What is your name? And she said, sometimes I'm Kalima. Sometimes I'm Dewa. Sometimes I'm this, Dewi, sorry. Sometimes I'm that. And
Yeah.
that's what a channeler is. Like sometimes you are this flavor and frequency of God. Sometimes you are this one. But we are trying to express all of God in all of God's configurations, or source in all of source, every aspect of source, through these little fragments or like attributes of source, because to actually realize we are all of that and it's all within us is too fucking much. So we put our power outside of ourselves. And I've had so many journeys where I'm like, God, come save me. Jesus, come save me. Angels, come save me from this thing that's attacking me. And it's like, to actually save myself is the opportunity to recognize I don't need some external thing, because I literally am the fucking all of source's power that I can just blast out of me and transmute so much love through my pussy that, like, like it's gone. There's nothing attacking me, because it's not even possible when I hold that much light. So I think we do that in a way. It's like, it's a paradox, because we do it to feel more powerful by attaching to this identity of I am this star seed, or I communicate with Archangel Michael, or whatever the fuck it is. But also on the other side, because we're so afraid of, hey, what if that was actually me and I was the creator?
When it's
Like, let that sink in. It's you. You are all of it. Your higher self is you. Archangel Michael is you. Like Kalima is you. They're just different flavors of you, right? And they are you. 1212 as I looked up. So that's my understanding with all of this stuff. It's not a popular opinion. I think a lot of people want to be like, I channel these aliens, and I'm like, I don't. Yeah, I mean, cool. We can play that game if you want to play that game that I'm channeling aliens. Let's play that game. I'm a fucking alien. Great, cool. I'll be that. Do you want me to be that?
it's becoming quite antiquated in the way that it's only limited until it's only useful, just like anything else here. It's only useful until you don't need it anymore.
Yep.
And I've talked about these things such as temporary truths. I mean, because we all go through phases that would embarrass us. Like, you should have seen the clothes I wore in 8th grade. Like, Emmy, oh my God, red face, right? But at the time, I was the shit, dude. I was
Yeah.
everything. Like, ladies, look out. And so, but that changes so much. And so, to that too, changes not only the people who experience those things, but also us on the not other side of it, but us with, let's say, having a different perspective, or an expanded awakening awareness of it, where you can sit back and you can sort of say, okay, well, maybe that's an option of experience, and it's wonderful that it's liberating these people and it's waking these folks up. But really, you and I probably see it as like you wearing an Archangel Michael mask and wearing like an Archangel Michael costume, and you come out as Archangel Michael, and then the you now that created the thing that you're looking at as Archangel Michael, rather than you just knowing, or rather than it showing up as you, or like a mirror that you're talking to, which would be trippy as shit. Then and it kind of talks back, you know what I mean? But you're in the mirror. Anyway, you show up as this portrayal that really inspires you, and it lifts you up. It's like, dude, my Archangel Michael, he's got a sword, dude. It's on fire. It's fucking badass. He's like 8 foot tall, man. I'm only like 5'6". It's okay. I get around. It's like these little considerations that you have for these anthropomorphizations outside of yourself to make these things bigger, which is awesome as shit. Like, it's cool. If it empowers you, if you're, you know, this is why you like listen to metal music rather than classical on your way to the gym or something. You know, there's just a time and a place for it. And if you can't summon it, or you're not yet to the awareness within, and you're still sitting in the temporary truth, which is fine. Stay in those temporary truths as long as you need. They're wonderful whirlpools. You never need to get out of the thing. Like, that's the best part about it. You'll find so much value and worth in that experience. And so just absolutely hang into it. But if you choose to see it this way, then there is an expanded version of this where you don't have to, like you said, you nailed it perfectly with this. You could skip the middleman. You don't need to go through all the archangels and make sure they're cool with it, or that you're putting out a certain offering at a certain time of day. What I think these rituals and stuff do, like what we're talking about, is get folks geared. It just quiets all the
Intentional.
noise,
Yeah.
and it lets you focus on something so that you're not digging through a tunnel and stop 2 feet away. These are the tools that keep your axe sharp to dig through. These are the things that keep you focused and not listening to all the scary things that your mom says you should be focused on, or that your job is talking about, or any of that shit. It's about digging your tunnel and finding your fucking nugget of gold. Just don't stop 2 feet before it.
Yeah. And I think any good leader or mentor, like, I think to me, what an ascended master or a guru is someone who has let go of so much of themselves that when you see them, you don't even see them. You see the goddess. Like, that is my ultimate goal for my life. And it's not even a goal, because it's a way of being. So it's not even something I have to be. It's something that I have to unbe.
You're here.
To just literally sit here and say nothing. And you just feel like you're in the presence of God. And I'm not God. I'm not God. God is shining through me because I've let go of everything that makes me me, all these identities and attachments. And so someone like, for instance, Ram Dass, I never understood Ram Dass, never liked Ram Dass, until I started this understanding of the love, and Jesus as well. Actually, I never really got it. I was like, oh, Christian upbringing, fuck Jesus, I'm not really into that. Sorry, homie, love you. Sorry, Beck, love you. I realized at this point that what they were doing was essentially giving people an access point to the divine through them, just through their being, because they were so empty. They were so empty of all their stories, all their limitations, all their attachments, all of their humanness, that when people would sit in their presence, that's what enlightenment is. It was like a pure vessel to God. And it's like, that's what a really fucking good channel it does. It's like, I'm speaking to you, I'm listening to you hear me, but there's no Beck in this. There is no little Beck, and my human personality. And yes, my human personality makes me relatable as fuck. And that's why I have this human personality. But there's a point in my future which I can feel where I just sit there and I say nothing. And that's what Ram Dass would do. He would just sit there and say fucking nothing sometimes towards the end. And you just feel it. It's a palpable presence. It's something that emanates through that being of they are just love. That's all they are. They are just love. And I think that's what these beings do. They emanate that frequency of love for us. They're like our older brothers and sisters that have really nailed that. That's what someone like Jesus would do. That's what someone like the Buddha would do, what Mother Mary, right? So if we need to call on them to feel that frequency that's already within us, to get to a point where we're just emanating that love just because it's who we are, that source frequency, then fine, great. Like, we've all had to, I had to call on and embody different archetypes. Like when I was calling in the lover recently, I was like, Venus, work through me. Like Venus, Aphrodite, same kind of, it's the same, she just has different names, but that energy of the pure lover. I was really working with Venus to access what was already in me. So I was like, Venus, help me to access, or I'm going to embody Venus. And I was like, I'm going to focus channeling the energy that Venus brings forward, that flavor of Beck that I really want to experience, or that flavor of source. And it was I became her. I became her in those moments when I'm doing a particularly tough clearing and there's lots of beings attacking me. I become Kali Ma. There is no separation between me and Kali Ma. I am Kali Ma in that moment. And so when you hear about people and they think that they're Jesus or they think they're the reincarnated Jesus, or they have memories of being Mary Magdalene or whatever, these people have these memories of, I was this identity. I had this friend in Bali and he was seriously convinced that I was an incarnation of Mother Mary. And he was so attached and he thought he was Jesus. And it was this story that he'd created to make himself feel important. And I was trying to explain to him, these beings or these ascended masters have let go of, it's like we share a collective consciousness with them, right? And so I'm not Mother Mary. I can just be Mother Mary in that moment and have her frequency come through me. And I remembered, like, I had collective memories. I remembered the crucifixion. I remembered being grieving for my son. I remembered that divine union template between him and Meg. All these things, I remembered them like they were my own memories, but they weren't my memories. It's a collective memory that we share when we start tapping into that web that I was saying at the start through our heart. It's that oversoul network of all of the consciousness of all of everything. Then we're tapping into those memories, those shared memories, those shared identities, those shared flavors. And then we're allowing them to transmit through us in an experience where someone can come to us and be like, for instance, with my friend, I was really embodying Jesus and Mother Mary. Like, they were the two energies. I was like, let her feel God through me when she's in her grief. Let her feel like she's completely held by the divine masculine in this moment, because her partner can't be that. And so I let go of all my stories, all my shit. And I was like, God, work through me and help her to feel whatever it is that she needs to feel in that moment. Help me to embody that maternal energy that she can't feel. And that, to get to that point, the journey to get there is a process of stripping back. It's a process of, so for instance, like even different feminine archetypes, like the dark goddess or the medicine woman or something like that. For instance, like the dark goddess to me is like Kali Ma, who's the destroyer. She's comes in and blows shit up with her truth, and she rips the heads off demons and blah, 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 blah. You can be a pure embodiment of that frequency where it's not painted or tainted with your human stuff. So there was a lot of time in my journey when I would take people through processes with Kali Ma or Hecate or some dark feminine energy, but at the same time as taking them to these places to go into those dark spaces of all their pain and their trauma, and when they were burnt and hung at the stake or whatever for sharing their gifts, my shit was still coming up. So I would take them to that place of losing their baby or society kicking them out, and my wounding was still coming up in that space. So I wasn't a pure channel of love because I had my own shit in the way. And so I had to release all of my, when you have a certain flavor, so even like the lover, for instance, and you're embodying that certain archetype or that flavor, if you're not a pure vessel, it's going to come through with all your own shit. So in the lover, it's all my shit about being too sexy and men are just going to use me, or it's about it's scary for me to be beautiful because being beautiful attracts my shit. So if I have that shit, then I'm not a pure frequency of the lover. It's not God coming through me in that flavor. So you need to go through this process of, when you're working with these different flavors or archetypes, what that brings up in you to be able to release it with love. So when someone's coming to you, they're coming to you and it's a pure experience of Mother Mary. It's a pure experience of Jesus. It's a pure experience of the dark goddess, without that anger being attached to, I'm still reliving the same trauma and I'm helping you to get into this frequency, but it's littered with all of my trauma and all the rocks in the way of me just being the pure fucking expression for this to shine through. Is that making sense, what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah, it totally is. And that's something that I wanted to ask. If any part of you has anything to say this evening that they would like to come through and say, we have about 38 minutes if I'm being exact here.
Yeah.
And so if anyone wants to come through, we'd like to absolutely invite them to do so. And, I'm curious if I could ask a question. What are we looking forward to next? There's been a lot of clearing, a lot of big things, a lot of news. If you watch that type of thing, there's a lot of energy lately. I mean, even me out here in Millsap, Texas, not completely unplugged from the news and all that kind of nonsense. I feel it. I feel electric and elated and more optimistic than I ever have. Some serious clearing in a lot of ways. And I've been feeling some huge things, just like a lot of folks have. And so I'm sort of representing the collective here, saying, what's going on with this wicked Schumann resonance, if that has anything to do with it, just sort of all of the things collectively that are happening right now that feel very strong. And it's an optimism I haven't felt before. It's sort of this, it's this new energy, really, is what I can, is the question I've got. What is that?
Yeah. Let me see. There's a few. Whoa. Okay. I just need to discern. There's a lot of different. I feel like this may be, it's the council that I was mentioning of these beings of really unconditional love, pure heart frequency. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm just gonna keep my eyes closed so I can just be as pure of a channel as I can. There's this recognition of, we're not there yet. We've done a lot of work. Humanity is we really are reaching this tipping point. We really are It feels like we've been slogging at it for a really long time, and we're just kind of breaching the top of this mountain, and we're starting to feel this air and this new way of being. And there's many of us, like for me, for instance, I'm feeling that new state of being, that 5D, that frequency. It hasn't completely landed for many people. So what I see is actually, I'm getting like a large, they're saying 80%. I think that's too much. Okay, 80%. Light workers still working through their stuff. So I'm now talking about not the whole of humanity. I'm talking about light workers who are still working through past karma, past trauma. There's this push of energies that have been coming through in the past 6 months to really free us from any old karmic patterns as a collective, as a humanity, even light workers who've come here. Because what it feels like is so many light workers have come here and incarnated, but they've come in to close their own trauma loops. And it feels like there's still 80% of these light workers who haven't quite completed that cycle, and they're in the process. So these high frequencies, essentially what they're doing, it's the wave of light workers, which they're preparing first, because it feels like there's this other push coming behind it, which is a mass awakening. And there are a lot of humans that are being affected by this, and they're starting to see this happening. But it's like the light workers need to anchor this frequency first. It's 80% that we're at now. Or is it 80% that we're at? Or it's, no, 80% of them are still working through. So there's 20% that feel solid, and they're there, and they've escaped the karmic shit. They've anchored in this new frequency. It feels like for the rest of the 80%, about half of them are very close. Like they're breaching. They're like breaching this new level, or they're more anchored into the 5D, and sometimes they slip back. But there's still 40% of them who are, it feels like replaying cycles, clearing up karmas, clearing up debts. And when that final 80% locks in, and I'm getting like a time frame of 2-3 months, it feels like there's some really big energies coming to help with this. Then this next collective wave of this mass awakening will happen. Because with this mass awakening, there's going to be, it's going to be a little bit chaotic. These are humans. We need to understand that many of them have not had many lifetimes on Earth. There's a lot of humans here who have signed up to experience Ascension that they haven't had incarnations on other places. They may be very young. It's going to be a very big evolutionary shift for them, and many of them will have to go through this dark night of the soul because of the high frequencies, because of us holding that upper kind of timeline. There's this bridge that has been created for them to jump over. It's like we did all this foundational work. We were coming here to clear very deeply ingrained karmic cycles for Earth, for humanity, which is why many of us had these human incarnations. We tactically, okay, thank you. We tactically, can you please slow down? We tactically came and incarnated in these human, this is for someone out there needs to hear this. You need to let go of your human shit. You need to let go of the suffering that you have been through in these human incarnations. It's a story. It served you. It does not serve you anymore. You came and you chose to experience this incarnation. Wow. Because you needed to have that experience, but now you are ready to let it go. So many of us chose to take on these painful human experiences, or we downloaded, what they're showing me is we downloaded memories, right? And these memories are like imprints. So they're not even our memories. But what happened is when we downloaded those imprints and memories, we downloaded all the trauma, and somehow we got caught into this karmic loop. And so it's like that karmic loop is an illusion for you now that you are holding yourself into. You need to let it go. You need to let it go. The time for karma, the time for clearing, the time for like repeating the same patterns is done. There is this energy now that is like you can release that shit really, really fucking quickly. It doesn't need to take 10 years. It doesn't need to take 5 years, 4 years, 3 years, even 2 years. You can release it really quickly. It's a choice. It's a choice. It's a choice. You need to stop. You just need to, it's a decision, right? I feel like so many of us are reluctant to make that decision because we're really attached to it. So when these people, I'm particularly speaking to the light workers, let go of those karmic templates, they cease to exist in our collective. They cease to exist for humanity, which means that the humans here who are about to already to take this leap will not get locked into those cycles. It's like we came and incarnated into these cycles of suffering and pain because we were going to break them. It's like, when people say Jesus came and he took on the sin of the world to obliterate that sin or whatever it was, that's what the energy of it feels like. Like some of us light workers have been incarnating here as humans and taking on these templates of suffering and taking on this the slavery, whatever it is, going through these experiences, because it's our unconditional love that is going to free humanity from the shackles. So we chose to be human, to take these experiences on, to heal those templates. And so what that means moving forward, like I said, is that these humans who are not yet fully awakened won't have to be on this karmic wheel. It feels like moving forward, karma won't operate in the same way. There won't be, it just doesn't feel necessary. I feel like this earth being this suffering plane, this learning school, it's going to be different. I don't know how to express that in any other way other than karma won't mean the same thing that it means. It feels like karma is changing. Karma and the premise of karma itself is changing, because many of the races that were here that were controlling us, enslaving us, are now leaving. They've been asked to leave. They've gone. They have left. You need to let it go. Wow. That's such a big, powerful message, because it's like they're gone. Stop trying to create that they're still controlling you. They're still here. It's just humans. The people in the government who are doing the bad thing, they're just humans. They are just humans. They don't have power over you anymore. So to every one of you that's afraid of shining your light because, oh my God, they're still here, they can still see me, like, let it go. You need to let it go. Yeah. And so this wave of humans won't have to go through what we went through. It's a huge leap for humanity into more love, more grace, more ease, more flow. It's who we were actually destined to be at the beginning. In this experiment, we're coming back to, I'm being shown Lyra. I'm being shown like the civilizations of Mu and Atlantis, of like what we were meant to be. We were meant to be in this utopia, this perfect human race. I wouldn't say perfect, we have our flaws, but I mean this heaven on earth that we were meant to experience. That's becoming available for us. Earth was not meant to be this painful learning school. It's almost like that happened through a process of, there are no accidents, but it feels like somewhere along the way this experiment got a bit warped, and then that karma happened and everything happened, and we've been trying to clear that process, but it feels like that timeline in the future is not available to us. There are timelines of Earth where that is still going on. There's still the karma, there's still the struggling. So I see it splitting off. Many channelers see this splitting off into two different realities entirely. There is going to be a version of Earth, which is that utopia that we always dreamed that it would be when we came here and seeded you all. Wow. It's just so, like, if you feel the frequency of this, it's the frequency beneath what they're saying. Like, we were always meant to have that bliss. It's like Garden of Eden vibes that they're showing me. And that sin, that suffering, that pain was brought in here to essentially fuck up what we were always meant to be. But that doesn't have a hold of us anymore. So I see this new timeline as, it feels like we're living in harmony with the earth. We're co-creating with the earth. We're treating her with respect. It feels like a complete different version of Gaia. I do see there's another timeline. And this timeline is more doomsday. It's more technology, more AI, people even more controlled, enslaved. But it's not other races that are doing it to them. They're doing it to themselves. So it's like all of humanity has the opportunity right now to choose which timeline they're on. And certain souls have chosen certain experiences, and that's fine, and it's whole and it's complete. But it's a choice. It's a choice that you have to anchor in and decide, I choose to be on this timeline where that heaven on earth is possible. And it does feel like there'll be a splitting off. But they're telling me this other timeline still leads to the higher timeline. Even those who've chose to experience this dystopian society, a longer collapse, financial crisis, all of this stuff, that's going to be the awakening that they need. But there's another way that you can do it, which is not, it's not that painful suffering. Like, there's two ways that we can have this experience of ascension. It's going to happen. This utopia is going to be created either way. They're telling me there is no future timeline where this doesn't eventually happen. You can choose to be on the faster timeline or the slower timeline. You can't fuck it up. There's no wrong choice. If you want to be stuck in your shit, going through that, if you want to continue to hold on to your karma, if you want to have the experience of it being hard, you can do that. It's okay. You'll still get there. There's no loss. There's no missing. There's just different levels, like we were talking about at the start. There's just different pathways there. I'm just asking if there's anything else around this specifically. I think many of us will be, when I feel like these two different timelines splitting, it's not that there's going to be two different complete versions of Earth. It's they will somehow be coexisting, and then one of them will just fall away. So it's like we're going to coexist for some time, but it's going to be almost like, it's reminding me of when Corona happened and didn't affect me. Like I was constantly, everywhere I would go, there was no police. I was able to travel. I was able to do this because it was like I would just miss those things, those experiences. So it's like we're protected in this environment. And it's like because we're tuned into this higher frequency, we just don't have to be in or engaging in that stuff, which for some of you will be really hard to believe, because it's like, but if the whole economy system is collapsing around me and everyone, you know, in my neighborhood is rioting, like how is that not going to affect me? But there's always a way that you'll be protected in that somehow. Like it's through your choice of focus is how you experience that situation. So it needs to happen. Like any of the crumbling that needs to happen, the mass awakening, don't pay attention to it because it's so necessary. And all of the paths are leading to this higher timeline. While I'm here, do you have questions that you would like to ask?
You know, it's brilliant that you answered the question I had about the two Earths, because we talk about this idea of 3D, 5D, the Dolores Cannon thing about what will it look like. And I've talked about this sort of idea of it existing kind of over there and you over here, and then it plays itself out. And then we just sort of get our shit together collectively. Is this the idea? And then just curious, not as far as shaking presents go, because I'm all about being surprised by the universe. So I don't need the answers in that way, right? I used to shake the presents. I'd go, it's totally Legos. And my mom's like, stop doing that. So I'm not not here to do that. Not here to ruin the surprise. But is there any sort of I hear a couple of years, like 2026, this idea of when the Sphinx lines up with Sirius or the Lyran constellation. I can't remember specifically. Maybe you can help with this. That there's something monumental that occurs there with where a mass contact event. I know Bashar's talked about this. Darylenko's channel of Bashar and talked about this. Recently, it's come out again about the Sphinx lining up at a specific date. It's the, I want to say summer solstice or spring equinox, one of the two on of 2026. So just curious if there's anything within that timeline.
We're already way further in this process than we think we are, is what I first get. And they were telling me, like, just let go of we all want to know the timeline, and that it's shifting is what they're saying. It's all the time, it's shifting. And as these frequencies come in, it gets moved forward, essentially. It's like how well we're dealing with what's happening. There were timelines, for instance, when all the Corona stuff happened, where all of this collapsing was going to happen way sooner, because we weren't on track for the, you know, the timing. It feels like it's up to us how fast that happens. I do feel that there's going to be something really solid happening before this 2026 timeline, but it actually feels sooner. I've had other channels also say 2024 is a really big year for us, where this split will be really apparent. And it's like some of us will be there already, like even now, experiencing heaven on earth. Like it's an individual thing. So I think we think that there's going to be some big collective thing, but it's like the process of one by one by one by one by one are anchoring this frequency, and then it's all that there is, if that makes sense. Like it's we individually have that experience before we collectively have that experience. There are some people who are already experiencing that right now. There are other people already building communities, already homeschooling their kids, growing vegetables. Like there are people already experiencing this experience here now. In terms of the catastrophic timelines of mass events or, you know, floodings, all of that stuff, I just feel like, honestly, when I tune into this frequency, there's this, if we were to know, it would ruin, not the surprise, but it's almost like there'd be fear associated with that. We're not ready to receive an actual certain date because so many of us will attach to that. And so it's be okay with the not knowing, which is it's an annoying answer, because I think a lot of channelers want to give you a date, but then when they give you the date, it doesn't happen. And then it's like, well, you said that date, right? So it's like that date is always changing, and we're just catching up to this already have happened. It's already has happened. We're catching up to it. So it doesn't matter. Like the date does not matter. And it can be now. Like essentially we can already be in that reality. Disclosure is already happening. They're like, what do you mean big disclosure event? It's happening. It's happening everywhere. It's happening all over. It doesn't feel like there's going to be some mass like aliens coming down. Other channelers have said this, the ship's going to come and take the people off Earth who aren't ready to ascend and rah, rah, rah. And I just, from this frequency, I don't know. I don't know if that's necessary. I don't feel it is, but maybe because I'm not on this other timeline. I'm not interested in it. I don't need to know what's going to happen to the humanity that's not on the timeline that I'm on, because I'm not here to serve that timeline. I'm here to serve the people who are ready to step up. Right. So I think certain channelers will have a different. Yeah, it's that level of consciousness thing, right? It's like, what are you tuning into and what is going to serve you? Is it going to serve you to think that there's going to be a mass collapse and the aliens are going to come and, right? Like that's the information you'll be receiving. So what is it in your heart actually is the highest timeline or the highest reality you want to experience, because that's what you'll be creating. And for me, it's not this dystopian thing where there's big events and whatever it is. It's like, it's actually just anchoring the heaven on earth in myself first, and then being able to support people from that place where I'm anchored in it. So they're really showing me like it comes down to the individual and that individual's their own personal journey and where they're at. This message again about like the let go of the karma just keeps coming through. So many of us are so like just not willing to accept that it could be easy.
Yeah. It's a
We
great point.
we want it to be difficult. We think that I signed up for this to be hard. It has to be hard. And it's just not true anymore. But yeah, just you need to let it go. I don't know.
That's the temporary truth that used to serve us, but it doesn't
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah. And that's almost like that we're projecting that idea onto this big ascension process too, that it needs to be this big collapsing of a civilization and it needs to be dramatic. But that's coming from our trauma as a humanity. It's coming from, oh, Atlantis came and there was this big wave, and oh, the Roman Empire crumbled, and like that's a trauma. Like we're playing that trauma thinking that some big catastrophic event needs to come usher in this heaven on earth, because that heaven on earth is a choice that we're all moving towards. It feels much more simple and grounded than when I channel it anyway, than what all these people are channeling, all these big events and big things. And it's like, actually the shift is subtle and it's internal. And it's the more of us shifting subtly and internally is going to have this massive external shift. And it's gradual. Like we think that it's going to be one big event that's going to change everything, but it's already happening. There's already these shifts that are happening in community, like I said earlier, people doing stuff. And it's all these little things that's actually going to make this happen. It's not one big blast of light. Or I mean, I could be wrong. In 12 months, I could come back and be like, whoops, we had a big blast of light. But when I'm feeling it at this moment, the most thing that serves to say is like the chipping away, the decision to anchor into that new frequency, the decision to let go of the old shit. That's what feels really important, because I think your audience as well is so tied into these theories of what might happen and big events and disclosure, and it gets to be so much more simple and grounded. Yeah.
It's the way you put it makes the most sense to me, because it honestly, it ties in all of the things that we know about manifestation. If you're putting it on a pedestal, if we're putting the idea that some alien's going to come in and land, or that the government's going to do something and then the aliens are going to step in, the mask, your Amazon order. I love the expeditiousness of this, how quickly it can come as well, because this makes a lot of sense. It does in the timeline feel that it doesn't need to be that long. Sometimes, like I remember this very clearly. I ordered a pair of shoes before we went on a huge hiking trip in Utah, and I really wanted these shoes before, and I knew that they would come in before, even though the date said that it would be a week into our trip. I was like, fuck that, they're coming in very much sooner. I knew for some damn reason they were going to be in the next day. There was no expedition shipping on this, anything like that. They were in the next day, and I just somehow knew this, but I decided that that was just so. And it feels like what you're talking about here and bringing through is honestly the most apt thing, because if we're waiting and waiting and waiting, and oh no, something, oh yeah, there's a new event, and then this means that must be happening now, and maybe it'll eventually, but there's so many indecisions on that that's what we want to happen. And I think you brought up a very important point here that's actually the ultimate limitation here, which is that it's already happened, like it's already
Yeah.
done, and that we
Yeah.
can just release the karmic cycle. We can stop running around. I got that song by Cake. Remember that song? He's racing around like the crowd's gone home and the lights gone down and he's just racing and racing all by himself, right? That's what I feel
Mm.
is going on. Like the race is over. We've lost,
Yeah.
but for or not like
The
it's
other way around.
lost, like it's
We've
over,
won.
right? You know what I mean? What I
Yeah.
mean to say is there's the dude this or the you really, which is what it because it all comes down to you, the listener listening to this, the one you watching
Mm.
this. It's not one of these two people having this conversation is going to do it. No, no, no. It's you, the one
Yeah.
listening to this. You have to decide that the race is over,
So
and that's
this
it.
is, it's all coming from this template that humanity is ready to let go of disempowerment, of non-sovereignty, of wait, okay, thank you. That's the frequency that's coming through now. We get to choose. Oh, like feel that frequency. You get to,
I
you
fucking
get
feel
to
it. Yes.
choose what the fuck happens. And oh, sorry, my whole body is like, whoa. Oh, like this is just energetic now. It's like empower yourself, like be sovereign, decide, like that's all it is. Don't think that it needs to be harder than it needs to be. We're complicating it, thinking that it needs to be this big process and this big fucking thing. We forget that we're creators. We forget that what we focus on happens. Like literally we are so fucking powerful and we can create whatever reality we desire to. So why are we focused on it having to be hard, having to be difficult? This is the template that we're releasing collectively. This is what's happening with all these shifts that are happening. This is the big shift into Aquarius. It's this move into sovereignty, really, and recognizing as humans we can be sovereign and create our own reality and we create our own timeline. And it's what vision would you like to see happen, not what you think needs to happen and how you think it needs to happen, because we've seen none of the stuff that we thought needed to happen has happened. You know, people have said, channelers have been saying for years, oh, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and it has to happen and blah, blah, blah. Like it didn't need to happen. We didn't need to all get vax certificates where we had to scan on everywhere, like in our arm, which people were saying is going to have to happen. So humanity then rebels and all this stuff. Like that whole thing just disappeared, right? Like it doesn't need to happen in the way that we think it needs to happen. Not to negate anyone's experience around that, because I know some people had some very traumatic experiences of that. It was not my experience, but I know that some people did. But we get to choose how easy or hard it is. And that goes for everything in our life. I'm receiving this message. Like I need to receive this message now too today, because my human's been, oh, you know, all that
This is
shit.
beautiful. We're grateful that it's being shared. I mean, just so grateful because it makes again so much sense. And it does feel like these timelines, these, oh no, it's going to happen then. I mean, maybe, if you decide that's when it's going to happen, then maybe. But really, again, it's this internal just, and if so, okay, well, then let's all say 2026 is when it's happening. Okay. If we've all collectively decided that, but 2024 is still on the table, then if we've all just collectively and as light workers, however you want to put it, deliberate creators, if we've all just decided that's what we're doing, then okay, cool. What do we do in the meantime? You hang out, you take your focus off of it. Now that we've got a date, you don't obsess over it. You don't feel like you're running out of time to do something before then. You take it off of your mind. Consider it like your Amazon order. It's been placed. You don't check the order and track it constantly. And this is why my shoes showed up in 2 days, meaning that this thing can be tomorrow or it can be right now. We just all collectively decide it's over right now and it's done. It's really up to, again, you, the individual listener, not waiting on us to, oh, are we going now? Or do we go now? Is now the time? Yes. Now, yeah, go now. Like yourself has already shown up in all the masks that it needs to. It's already put on all the suits of all the archangels. And then it was an alien for a while. And then it got you really far here. And then here's the point where it's a mirror. And it just shows you that. That's this trippy mirror bit where it's just you talking to you in a mirror saying, hey, it's going to be fine, but you decide. Do you feel worthy of this? Are you okay being the most elated and happy you've ever been? Like, is that okay for you? Really sit with that. That's something that I think a question everybody needs to ask. And then you
There's
just think, what's the best that can happen? And you just sit back.
there's something that's coming through around like the second coming of Christ, right? The Christians have taught, the Armageddon or the end of the world or whatever it is. we're moving into a period of Christ consciousness. And to me, Christ consciousness is the alchemist. It's the sovereign creator. It's like Christ was not the only person who could access God and have God work through him. We all are moving into a time where that's what's on the table. That's what Christ consciousness is. It's being a pure conduit for the divine. There's just big themes of sovereignty coming through for humanity and us stepping into our power and manifesting what we desire. And yeah, like letting it be so much more magical than what we could possibly even fathom. I think there comes a lot of like doom and worry and anxiety around, oh, this, like, I'm getting really joyful energy, right? Like coming through me.
Same.
It's so beautiful. And it's like, my God, so many of us signed up for this, not because it's like, oh, fuck, I've got to help out humanity. We were so excited, like there's huge excitement coming through. They're blasting it through my body as a, like, it's joyful. It's like, oh, this is so exciting. Like, this is so exciting that we get to be here for this. It's not this burden. It's not this heavy. Oh, I feel like so many people that listen to your podcast are super awake and they're light workers, because that's who needs to receive. The humans don't need to receive this message right now. Like the unawakened humans, they don't even understand this. It's not for them to understand right now. But there's so many of us who've become complacent or like, oh, it's this burden. It's so hard. It's so heavy. It's so tiring. But like, actually remember, your soul was so joyful and excited to show up and do this. Like that joy, that play, that we get to walk humanity through this massive fucking shift. And it's a privilege. Like, it's so exciting. Don't forget that. So stop looking at this like, oh, it's this big painful thing that we all need to go through, and there's going to be growing pains and it's going to suck. And I'm not saying spiritually bypass when things get shitty, but have that high perspective of where it's leading us and that excitement. We all know it's coming. Like, I can feel it in my body of what's here and what's possible. And it's that reminder of like, this is really exciting. It's really exciting. And it's beautiful. And imagine more people taking on that perspective around what's going to happen, and not trying to know the dates and when we're going to have this thing because I'm worried and I need to sort myself out. It's like, it's exciting when aliens come out in their spaceships, if they do, which I don't feel like, I mean, maybe, who knows? But if that happens, how exciting is that? How exciting is it going to be when we can take a seat at the Galactic Federation as humans and be represented? And that's what other channelers have said, that humanity is going to take a seat soon in the Galactic Federation, being represented to all the different beings of the universe who have representation there. That's huge. It's so, we've been waiting for this for thousands of millennia. Like, this is such an exciting moment to be alive. Can you reframe it? Can you reframe and let go of all the things that have been and stop letting the past paint your future? It's exciting. This is so a message for me right now. And I'm so grateful to be channeling this for all of you and receiving it, because like on a personal level, that's what I feel for myself. Like, I'm about to make a huge evolutionary leap and it's so exciting. And stop looking over your shoulder, like waiting for the rug to get snatched out of you. And can you be in that excitement and that anticipation and live your life from that place? Yeah. Which is hard. Some of us don't feel connected to this excitement, and you probably want to punch me in the face. And that is completely okay. Because you'll get there. Like, some of us need to be in this process for however long it takes to realize that pain and suffering is not, it's not helping us anymore. I feel to pull myself out because I feel this is complete. So thank you, beautiful beings. Oh,
wow. Yeah. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Thank you. There's just so much in there. That was one of the most powerful things I've ever experienced. There's just so much it's so free. You freed us from this sort of expectation, from this idea, and you really empowered us, but in a kind of a way. It makes all the sense in the world, because yes, you're the leader, you're the CEO of this bitch. You're driving the ship. It's your show. And so if you decided it's going to be Project Bluebeam, and then that's what needs to happen, then okay, let's ramp up Project Bluebeam, roll it out, get it done here. But it doesn't need to be, and it can just be a decision. And then it comes back to everything that everyone has talked about, if you really, really listen, which it all comes back to you. and your disposition, how you feel. Are you scared? Are you, perfect analogy, looking over your shoulder constantly, waiting for that rug to be pulled out from under you? I don't feel that anymore, to be honest with you. I've realized something strong about maintaining my power in the present moment and not offering it up to a bunch of far-flung futures that don't exist, or to past me that was doing the best it could with the information it had at the time. And then especially us as light workers, if you think about this, and even multidimensional or multi-universe personality sort of viewings, if you see this place as there's alternate versions of you in an infinite number of ways that can experience everything that there is to experience here, and it happens based on your thought process, then what you're really doing in those moments is offering the pieces of you that must walk the plank of that experience to fulfill it for you. You're offering them that. So those pieces of you have to go through that experience. So if nothing else, be more mindful of all the little splinter pieces of you that you don't need to send to the gallows, as it were, with these horrible premonitions that you have about a future that doesn't exist, or all the possibilities. You'll kill yourself 80 times in that thing, and all the suffering, or you'll put yourself through these horrible experiences, but you don't need to. That's a chosen thing. But it's, you're in your present moment. In this moment is where all your power is. And it was from this idea, all the ideas I'd heard forever, just like the epiphany you gave us here tonight, it's built on the foundation of this one, which has been very recent. So again, these epiphanies are like, holy shit. I mean, holy shit. Oh, and then we have Beck on, and holy shit, even more. Oh my God. And so there's an integration process. I'm grateful that we are offered with this, which is why we only do these once a week, because everybody is going to sit with this and go, holy shit. And, you know, in the little bit of time that we have left here, just want to thank you again for being with me, Beck. You're a dear sister. And like you said, we would have met anyway. We meet in all of these little jaunts that we do in the physical, and I'm grateful to see you in this one. I'm glad you showed up with an Australian accent this time, because it's my favorite. So thank you very much. What do you think of the American accent? I'm curious about what people with accents not mine think of it.
I'm really racist when it comes to, I really like foreign, like, so I'm really into people who don't speak English as a first language.
Oh, okay.
I actually am not a fan of the English accent. I'm not a fan of the American accent. I'm not really a fan of the Australian accent. I'm really into foreign, particularly men. Like, that's where I'm really talking about. Like, men, I'm into foreign men who don't really speak English as a first accent. They got a bit of cute European or Latino or Middle Eastern something flavor. I think the American accent, some of them can be really nice and easy to listen to. Some of them, I want to fucking stab you. I'm so, not you, but like some of them, I'm like, oh dear, sweet Jesus, just stop.
Do you have one you want to demonstrate for us in your most mocking of ways?
Oh my fucking God. My name is Becky. No, like that. Like,
just kidding, Becky's out there. We're just using that as the example. Poor Becky's, am I right? That they have to do that. Karen's, by the way, as well. Poor Karen's. So, you know, shout out and love to the Becky's and Karen's of there. Because Becky's already had it coming with the Big Butt song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do have a big butt. So it's accurate. It is true. And I can't lie about it either.
You cannot. No, it's there's no kidding about it. I want to ask then, what are you hopeful for? What gets you out of bed every morning and keeps you moving forward?
Being able to do this with more people. Like, I'm in bliss right now. I just love talking about this stuff. I love sharing that. It really gets to be so simple because we complicate it so much. And it's so funny, whenever I channel a message, I'm like waiting for all this galactic stuff to come through and all these things and information, and they just like, it's so simple. Like, it's so simple. So bringing that simplicity to more people on a personal level, I'm really excited to whatever this new iteration is coming for me. I'm so excited about to head to Mexico, which I'm really excited about. Doing a conference for ufology there. So I'm going to go tell them all that we need to let go of being attached to aliens, which is going to be fun. No, I'm kidding. That'll be good. I think I'm really excited for more people to be living from their hearts and free, like the freedom, like of joy that it is when you're living from soul. Yeah, I'm excited about all of that.
Beautiful. Well, we wish you cool runnings on your journey. And, you know, that means peace be the journey, cool runnings. Have you seen that movie? That classic?
I've heard the name. Yeah, I've heard the name.
Just throw it on your list. You know, it's about the Jamaican bobsled team that goes to the Olympics. True story, I believe. And so cool runnings or peace be the journey. Brush up on some of that Espanol. You speak Spanish at all?
Yo practico español todos los días porque yo voy. like I'm fucking, yes, I've been practicing every day
Well, good.
because I'm going to Mexico.
Just
Yeah.
donde está el baño, and remember, don't drink out of the tap. Get bottled. Don't let them open for you, all the good things. You know, just keep that distance in check. Well, Beck Mylonas, all the ways to find you located down there, guys. Make sure you check out beckmylonas.com. All that stuff linked in the show notes, and your readings are incredible. People can reach out to you and they can really go deeper with this with you. And as you can see here this evening, highly recommend that you do. Talented young woman who's absolutely on a mission of empowerment here. And we are beyond grateful for you being here, sister, and healing and being of that vessel of pure source energy, and just could not be more grateful for you. So folks, reach out. She is available and here, open, ready to serve, and powerful. Thank you,
Thank
Beck.
you so much for having me. Love you.